Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this final session in our 6-week series on zooming in on your job search. As a brief introduction, my name is Susan Pack, and I'm the Director of Career Services here at WVU Tech. I'll be walking you through this final session, Now What? How to proceed after you've completed an interview. At the end of the interview, you may feel a sense of relief that it's done. You've done all you can do. All you can do now is wait for the phone call, right? Unfortunately, that isn't true. The steps you take post-interview can be just as important as everything you've done up to this point. There are specific steps you can take to make sure you can continue to present yourself as a professional and desirable candidate to the hiring manager. These steps include asking for clarification and next steps. So asking for their contact information and the next steps you should be doing, assessing your performance, making notes of anything important that were discussed during the interview, sending a thank you note, contacting your references, following up, and then finally, being patient. Let's explore each of these steps so you're ready with what to do after you've interviewed. So the first step, before you even leave the interview, you should ask what the next steps are that you can expect. This is critical information that can help you determine when a decision is going to be made. Instead of asking what are the next steps, ask one of your questions for the interviewer, because like we went over in a previous session, they always ask, do you have any questions for us? You could ask something along the lines of, when do you anticipate making a decision on this position? Or will there be a second interview for this position? And if so, when will you notify the candidate that you'll be moving forward with them? These questions will help you know what to expect and when you can expect to hear back from them from the employer. A sad truth is that there are employers who won't let you know if you didn't receive the position. By asking the questions and having a timeline, then you'll know how to move on. So, okay, when am I going to be expecting a call? Or maybe I can just stop expecting a call. If they told me that they are going to let me know by April 1st on a job and it is now the end of the month, then I probably can just know that they're not going to follow up with me. And the final thing that you should be doing is making sure that you are verifying their contact information for the hiring manager. This should include their name, phone number, and email address. You'll need these items a little further into the process, so make sure to make a note of them and have easy access. It doesn't have to be just the hiring manager. It could be anyone who sat in on your interview that you want to follow up with, so make sure you have those notes accessible. Now that you've left your interview and you've returned, like you're returning home, you're going to want to sit down and assess your performance. Honestly, you may have already started doing this as soon as you left the interview. I know a lot of people do. On the drive home, you may have found yourself saying, why did I say folk dancing was my greatest strength? That has nothing to do with the job. It's natural to pick apart an interview and determine how you felt about how it went, and doing this in an outline form can be very beneficial for future interviews. So start by writing down the questions you were asked and then what you remember how you answered them. And next, what you're going to want to do is write out what you wish you had said instead. So if you had said, like our example, that folk dancing was your greatest strength, you're not going to want to use that again. You're going to want to have a different one. Looking at these items can help you identify issues with anything that you did say or things that kind of you got hung up on. So did the folk dancing answer come out because you hadn't thought about what are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? So you weren't prepared. So you know that if you have another interview in the future, you need to make sure that you have these answers, that you're prepared and ready to answer the questions. Again, remember that assessing your performance can help you improve your interview skills and be prepared for future interviews, be it with a second interview with the same company or a different interview with another one. Next, while you've got your notes out, write notes on the important things that you learned in the interview and want to make sure you don't forget. Let's say that you get a second interview and when you arrive, you can't remember the name of the hiring manager. This could give a signal that you're not wanting to give. You want to make sure the signals you're giving are very true to what you want to be saying. So make sure instead that you take the time to write out important items such as any insights you gained on the company during your interview. Is the company a leader in green innovation? Have a company softball team. Write down those insights that'll be beneficial in the future, whether it's in a second interview or deciding if you want to join the team if you receive a job offer. Though I mentioned this just a moment ago, it's important to note who you met with. It's the best if you can write both their names and titles. If you can't remember both, keep track of their names and then do some investigation afterwards to find out their titles, either on the company's website or a site such as LinkedIn. So if you were interviewing with me, you could make a note that my name is Susan Pack, and you could, if you could remember, say I'm the Director of Career Services. But if not, you could just write down my name, dash WVU Tech, and then go Google me or go to the company website and see if you can find that information as to what my title is. The big thing is making sure you have their name so you can do so. Finally, you want to make sure you've noted details you'd like to bring up in the future. If you get a second interview, maybe there's a question that arose from something you learned in the first interview that you didn't think of until you left. Get these items together so you don't have an awkward, I know I had something else to ask about moment in the future. It happens to everyone, but having this information wrote down, especially in secondary interviews, or if they call to maybe make a phone call or you want to use this in the future to do a follow-up, you're going to have notes that you can refer back to make sure that everything you're sending is personalized. Now, once you've completed that, we're going to talk about sending a thank you note. This is a step that a lot of people don't take, and it is the step that can actually get you the job. So it's very important to do. So within 24 hours of your interview, you should send a thank you note to the hiring manager or individual who was the lead of the interview process. A thank you note serves two main functions. First is expressing your gratitude for the interview. And second, to bring yourself back to the employer's mind as a potential candidate. When you're writing a thank you note, make sure you aren't just restating your qualifications. This note should be personalized to this opportunity. And again, reinstate how grateful you are for the opportunity to be interviewed for the position. On the screen, you'll see a very simple example of a thank you note. If you have taken your good notes in the previous step, you can make this a more robust and personalized thank you note. So it's not just kind of a template like we've got here. So you could talk about something specific that you learned about the company during your interview that you think makes it the best organization and you really want to work there. You could bring up something that came up during the interview and after you left when you were like, man, I wish I had answered this question this way. You could bring up that question and say, during our interview, you had asked me about this, and though I didn't talk about it in our interview, I just wanted to let you know this is how I feel about this. So you can bring those things back up. That's why the last few steps are so important in getting to this step. And they should be completed again right after the interview. So you're ready within 24 hours to send your thank you note. After you've sent your thank you note, you should also reach out to your references. With this call, you can let your references know that someone from the company you interviewed with could potentially be contacting them. This gives you a chance as well to give them a brief debrief with them about what the company is and the role you applied for, so they're ready to provide the best possible reference should they receive a call. So again, it's a whole thing of a lot of times you're applying to multiple jobs and you ask people, oh, will you be a reference for me? And the way that you want someone to represent you as a reference for one job may be different than for another. So it's important, again, to have that conversation with your references, give them a heads up. Also, so they know to be looking for, you could tell them this is the company's phone number so that they don't just send it straight to voicemail. So just doing that little step, contacting your references, making sure they as well are on the end game or on their A game. Now you can see the next step is following up, and you may be saying, I already followed up by sending a thank you note. This follow up is different. Let's say that you asked at the end of your interview when a decision would be made. They said by the end of the week at the latest. You've now hit the point that it's Tuesday of the next week and you haven't heard anything. Now is the time to send a second follow up. This follow up should be short and succinct. If you send a novel, the hiring manager is less likely to read it. Remember, the purpose of this is to excuse me, the purpose of this is to get an update, and if they haven't made a decision, to remind them that you are interested in the position. So reinstating your interest, again, bringing yourself back to the front of their mind as a good candidate, and just getting the answer as to, are you still looking for someone, or should I be looking for a different job? End your follow-up message with a statement that shows you'd like a reply, such as, I look forward to hearing from you soon. That is a nice way of saying, when are you going to make a decision? So again, you are putting something in there saying you are essentially expecting a reply, even if it's a reply of, we've decided to go in a different direction, because sometimes the not knowing is the worst part. And finally, I'm going to suggest that you be patient. This is quite possibly the hardest thing to do after an interview. It's stressful to wait to hear back from a company after you've interviewed. Remember that things can move slowly and will only seem to move slower if you spend too much time over analyzing your interview. It's best to be patient. So you're going to want to analyze your interview once, at most twice. Don't sit around and go through it over and over. Like, what did I do wrong? What can I do? Why aren't they calling me? Don't obsess over it. You've done all you can do. So do it once or twice and then just let it go. Send your thank you notes, do your follow-ups, and try to relax knowing you've done everything you could to be the best representation of yourself to achieve this job. As always, we want to thank you for joining us for this session. If you have any questions, any feedback, or need any additional assistance, please reach out to Tech Career Services at mail.wvu.edu. We're here to help. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.